You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast. We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite platform.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. We are live on X this evening. We are also live on any number of different platforms. It appears to have a big audience there rolling in. We always wait just a moment for everybody to lock onto the live stream. Sometimes people have to refresh their app or do whatever. So we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to kind of lock onto the live stream. And then we get started. Say hello to Shamanisis. Shaman, how are you?
I'm amazing, Billy. Glad to be here. Lots to discuss.
Lots to discuss. Okay. We're going to pause just a moment, and then I will go ahead and do the intro. Thank you. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you have never checked us out before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. All kinds of topics covered here. On Thursday nights, we go live. My partner for that is Shamanisis. Shaman, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Billy. Some sick part of me is kind of like loving the fact that media is finally having some important conversations. So I'm looking forward to today.
Yes. As we go live, I just got done watching the Biden press conference. Okay. And the purpose of this press conference was to kind of give him a chance to field questions, kind of live and see how he does. The first thing out of the gate that surprised me is this was originally scheduled. We're going live right now at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday evening. This press conference, I believe, was scheduled for 6:30. And we waited, and it didn't start until almost an hour late. Now, if I am in charge of, okay, we're going to show how on top we are. The first thing I would like to do, is start on time. He opened with a scripted set of remarks, from the teleprompter, which he read. Okay, there was no problem there. And the press conference is still going on as we're going live, but in the time that I watched it, I didn't notice any major gaffes. He wasn't necessarily blowing me away, which is about what I expected. Yeah. I honestly expected, he's not going to blow me away, but he's probably not going to be a disaster either. And that's pretty much about what is happening there. Now, to kind of summarize what we're going to talk about here in regard to Biden, if you're new to the program, first of all, we are nonpartisan. We're not here to, say our guy's great and that person over there sucks. That's not what we do here. From a marketing standpoint, certainly, Shaman and I both have a marketing background. My last episode was about branding in regard to political candidates. So this is kind of where we come from. Now, one thing I have noticed, and it's across the board, it's not Democrat or Republican, and Shaman, I'll let you comment on this, is we now have the ability to just deny reality. It used to be that you could lie, or you could deceive, or you could bend the facts. But now it seems the more you repeat something, the more people are going to believe it. That seems to be the rule. Am I wrong, or am I right about that?
No, you're right. Repetition is education, at least in the really awful way we've invented it here in America. And I think our politicians just believe if they keep saying something enough, people will buy it. But people can see with their own eyes. I honestly thought that we'd reached the bottom of the barrel with politicians and the things they were willing to do. And this last few months has just created a new low in politics.
I am going to start with the denial that people have had about Biden. I have been probably a little bit more vocal. Shaman and I have both said we had doubts about Biden's ability to run this year in the 2024 election. And here again, this is not partisan. If anything, Shaman and I have given a lot of empathy towards President Biden as a human being, his overall health, and he's getting into a stage, in my opinion, that he should be enjoying life and not worrying about running a superpower. With that being said, it seems like us saying that, and like I said, me being more vocal, I got a lot of grief about it. I've had people come at me on social media. I've had people come at me in any number of different ways, emails, messages, and so on, saying that I was talking about Biden, questioning his ability to run, that I was feeding a conspiracy, that these were all conspiracies that were used to discredit him as a president, to discredit him as a candidate. I'm going to play a little clip here. This is Shaman and myself here talking about President Biden and, quite frankly, Trump too, over the past 6 months. Here we go. The fact that I don't have a whole lot of confidence that Joe Biden can get through an election year.
Much less 4 more years.
Which would be 4 years on top of that. Till you go through the election cycle, and then the term starts the following January. This would be 5 years in. Okay, I just, and not being mean, this is very practical. I just don't know that he can do it. And when somebody starts declining like that, you really have to say, is this a wise thing to do? Is this somebody who could possibly be in a position where they have to make a big decision quickly? And how thoroughly are things going to have to get explained to them?
Oh, it's so bad. But I mean, I God bless Biden. I'm very respectful of the office of the president, but it is clear to any idiot with 2 eyes that he is not going to make it, because they have been not talking about his decline for years.
Fair enough.
They've seen it in person. If I can see it on television from here in New York, I know those people sitting in that room with him could feel how unhealthy he was getting, and they haven't said anything. As a matter of fact, they all stood, did the party line and said what was supposed to be said to make sure that the people kept supporting Biden.
And quite frankly, this choice that we have between Biden and Trump, I mean, it's a regurgitation of what we had in 2020.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the best scenario then.
Yeah.
And I have people swear up and down that, Biden is better than Trump. Anything's better than Trump. But I'll tell you what, if you honestly believe, let me put this into an analogy for you. Okay. If you believe that Joe Biden is better than Trump, the best thing I can tell you is that's like taking a shit in your pants and going home and changing your shirt.
Oh.
So that's what this election is. We're all sitting with shitty pants, and we're going to change our shirt in November. That is the election this year. That is true. That is the election we have. We're regurgitating 2 candidates, and actually, I'll put a positive spin on that. These fatalists drive me crazy. The people on the right saying that if Biden gets in there, if the Democrats get in there, our country's going to be ruined, and the other way around. We survived Biden. We survived Trump before. We've survived other bad things. It's not going to be the end of this country. It's not going to be the end of the world if your guy gets in there, or your woman, depending on what happens here. We're going to talk about that. I think the fatalistic talk is doing nothing but stoking fear and creating a lot of problems. Shaman, do you want to respond to where I'm going with this? Is we've been talking about this a long time, and now all of a sudden it's revelations.
Yeah. It's shameless. It's shameless. Yes. I mean, I have to say, Billy, I've been on this planet for a really long time, and I'm used to people being delusional. I'm used to people being so set on their side that they're willing to repeat things that aren't true. But to watch what's happened in the last 6 months, in particular, the attacks on Trump, the insanity of distracting everybody and wasting extraordinary resources to attack him politically, weaponizing the judicial system. And then you add to that the Democratic Party running Kennedy out so he can't compete with Biden, even though it was obvious when they were doing that Biden did not have the capacity to be president again. The fact that it's become very clear to everybody, including mass media, which is kind of refreshing to hear them speaking the truth for a change, because we've been speaking openly about this since last year. They ran Kennedy out. They've lied repeatedly to the American people. There's no way that it has not been known in the liberal media for a long time, probably 2 years. People have to have been asking questions, because I've been asking questions like, how does anybody not realize this man's not in his full capacity? And then now we find out, he's not running the country. And, to some degree, no president really does.
Yeah.
But the amount of lying that we're now finding out about, I think is going to be a turning point for the American people, and for us to hopefully get out of sound bites and move into solutions, because we've got some serious issues and we need to focus on them. And we need somebody who can actually handle that conversation.
Yeah. Revelations happening now is following some of the coverage leading up to the press conference, and all these talking heads are like, oh, we had no idea. How did the Democrats keep this from us? Oh, they kept him. It's absolutely ridiculous. George Clooney, of course, the actor, and you know how I feel about actors
talking politics,
bloviating. Yeah. George Clooney wrote an op-ed for the New York Times. Wow.
Ooh.
Hey, he must be very talented, because he can not only act, but he can type. That's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It helps when you're good friends with Obama.
Yeah, his talent. Oh, I just love this God-given talent these people have. And of course, he was born in, Rosemary Clooney. That's, that's who that is.
His father was also a radio star.
Yeah. Who's sorry now? I am. That's who. Okay. You have to be of a certain age, as they say, to get that one. Either that or know the history of pop music throughout the 50s, 60s, and so on. Anyway, George Clooney, quoting from the New York Times, I love Joe Biden. Isn't that amazing how they all profess their love for Joe Biden as a senator?
Let's be honest. I mean, I don't hate the man, because I don't hate anybody. I don't have the energy for it. He's not lovable. Where the hell are they getting that from?
As a vice president and a president, I consider him a friend, and I believe in him. I believe in his character. I believe in his morals. In the last 4 years, he's won many of the battles he's faced. Oh, yes, indeed. But the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. Doesn't he have a way with? Oh, it's such a way with words. Oh, yes, none of us can. It's devastating to say it, but Joe Biden, I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser, is not the same Joe Biden. He's not the big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. The man I was with, he's referring to in this commentary here, he was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Yes, well, I'm so glad George Clooney is bestowing his knowledge with such delightful verbiage among the plebes of this country. Trump laid into him on this, and that's am I going to say, yeah.
He did a very funny commercial. Whoever's doing the social media for Trump is actually really talented. But you got to give kudos where they go.
Yeah, they interplaced George Clooney with George Stephanopoulos, or the other way around, and during the interview. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't hate a celebrity who wants to be a part of politics. I hate when they lecture and tell other people what life decisions to make, and to insult them about their own personal opinion about a situation. My question for him is, why did you wait until everyone knew before you did anything about it? And was this about saving your own reputation, or were you asked by the Democratic Party to help push him out the door? Because it's become pretty obvious to me that, I feel like this whole thing is a performance.
Yeah.
They're definitely stealing the thunder from Trump in many ways, but it's not healthy ways. But they're running out of time.
They're running out of time.
But the point of that whole thing is, so George Clooney, you were going to let us elect a president that you've known for weeks now was not in his right faculties.
Yeah.
So you, just like the liberal media, don't give a fuck about the American people. You care about maintaining your power base. So who is running the country? Because you clearly know.
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't have kept your mouth shut for 3 weeks.
The a lot of the questions during the press conference this evening, I thought were very unfair, actually, towards Biden because they kept asking him, what happens if Trump gets in there? You know, this evil man, Vlad the Impaler, is going to be coming into. And I'm not defending Trump, but I'm just saying that's how they frame this.
Yeah.
You're going to let this guy come in if you stay in. Why won't you get out? Is basically the insinuation of a lot of these questions. And the fact of the matter is, being totally honest here, I don't feel that Biden is qualified to be president because of the fact that he has declining faculties. I say that as a human being, a fellow human being. I say that not politically. Him getting out isn't a guarantee of the Democrats winning. There's no guarantee that if he gets out and they put somebody else in, that they're still going to win. That is an
I actually
unfair
think
question. Go
I
ahead.
think it's actually at this point, I think it's too late. I think they've
It's
made
getting
such
tough.
all the lies, it's leaving a bad taste in so many people's mouths, which has to highlight. I've never seen such delusion in my life. I'm having conversations with people, and if they're really into being a Democrat, they're saying one of two things. They're either saying Biden's fine. I love him. He's done so many good things for the people. Dude, groceries cost twice as much as they did
Yeah.
2 years ago. Apartments are unaffordable. Like, come on, stop with that nonsense. Or the other one that I'm absolutely just eating up is, who cares if he's a bumbling idiot? Let's get him in. It's better than the alternative. And it's like, is that where you guys are at as a party? Let's just get him in, even if he's an idiot. And if I hadn't heard that from repeated people, I would think it was just an extreme point of view. But I think that's actually the kind of sort of overarching method that they were going for. And now I think it's getting to the point where they can't fix this situation.
You know, my last commentary that I did on the podcast was about branding. And I'm not going to get into that. I think you and I maybe could do a thing about branding coming up here in the future. But it takes time to cultivate. You know, it's not just a slogan. A lot of people think, okay, well, what's the slogan? Clinton came in with a new, fresh look, a new style, and there was a don't stop believing. There was all everything was designed around something new and fresh. You had that to a large degree with Obama. You know, yes, we can. We are the people that we have been waiting for. These aren't just slogans. These were themes that came across in every speech that he made, in every advertisement. And there was a branding that came around him that made people feel a certain way.
Yeah, well, that makes it comes across like you have your shit together.
Yes. And with Biden, they've had 4 years to cultivate a candidate. They've had 4 years to cultivate a brand. The only thing that the Democrats have been running on is our guy isn't as bad as Trump.
It's not branding.
That's not a brand.
Yeah, I really think they thought that the whole going after Trump using by weaponizing the criminal justice system, I really think they hung their hat on that. And that was it. That was as much branding and thought process they did to the entire campaign. And now it's too late to even really create an effective one. And if they bring somebody else new in, they don't really have the time.
That's the thing I was getting to. How do you cultivate somebody now? All right, you're a month or two away from the convention. The Republican convention's next week. So, you know, the Democratic convention's a little farther out, but you don't have a whole lot of time. Even with Obama, even with Clinton, that was a year in the making. Now, that was fast as it was, and that was a year. Okay, so what's your message? What's your brand now? So, you know, I really, if you go by the polling here, the polling really hasn't changed that much. But in a general election, when it's a close election, the electoral college really starts to come into play. Because it's going to be close. And quite frankly, you know, getting back to what I said about being fatalistic, the one concern that I do have is we end up with some kind of a thing that we had in 2000, where you don't even know who won. I don't know that our country can deal with that well in the current climate that we have now.
It'll be the French Revolution.
Yeah, it'll be okay. Getting back to the George Clooney thing, here's Jake Tapper. I want to point something out about Jake Tapper. I'm not a big fan of CNN to begin with. Most people aren't. their ratings are really low. But Jake Tapper bothers me because he was always sneering and making little
Mhm.
when he was talking about Trump. Now he's doing the same thing, and I want to be clear here. It's not about Trump. It's not about Biden. As a journalist, this sneering has no place.
No.
Okay, and if you want to call it the Jake Tapper show, and it's my opinion, and I'm going to make all kinds of jokes, and that's fine. But when you're presenting yourself as news, as some kind of an authority as to what is, this type of stuff shouldn't be happening here. And here it is. He's talking to a correspondent about the reaction to the George Clooney remarks. Here we go.
To those comments from George Clooney, Jake, a campaign official who attended that Los Angeles fundraiser tells me that George Clooney left 3 hours before the president. So clearly the gloves are off. Jake.
But what does that mean that George Clooney left 3 hours? What's the point?
The point of that is to suggest that Biden's stamina is better than Clooney's, and Clooney didn't have, eyes on the entire event. That's the response to the Clooney op-ed.
Okay.
You sneering SOB.
I'm sorry. He is sneering, but what she said was doesn't really make a lot of sense. But he reminds me of a smarmy little nepo frat boy.
Yeah. I mean, to me, when they said that George Clooney left 3 hours early, my instinct, I guess my impression was, well, he wasn't there the whole time. How can he speak and write an op-ed like this when he wasn't there the whole time to observe all the events all the way through?
Rarely do celebrities stay for an entire event if they can leave. If they're not locking the doors for an award show, they pop in and leave. That's just the standard MO. It's really about being seen and having your photo taken.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And under those circumstances, the point is, how could he have known all this? Okay. But here again, with Jake Tapper, I don't like that sneering. He did the same thing with Trump, and it doesn't hurt my feelings about Trump. I want to make this clear. This is not how the news should be presented. You should not. Can you imagine Walter Cronkite going, well,
yeah.
Can you imagine that? I mean, come on, man. This is news now. Okay, this is the state of news, and I've talked about this before. Would we listen, Shaman? Your history in marketing and public. Would people listen to somebody like Walter Cronkite with glasses like these and a pocket protector, giving the news flat? Would people listen to that today?
Honestly, if he was speaking the truth, they might.
You think so?
I think people are bored and they will watch what they find entertaining, and I'm sure he has an audience of other fellow smarmy, sneering people who are entertained by his antics. Yeah, it's interesting.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, I'm not impressed with this whole thing. And I what I said, the crude joke I made about Trump and Biden, I don't know how we got to this point. I don't know how we got to the point where these two guys are the two guys. Let's talk a little bit about RFK Jr. A lot of RFK Jr. Supporters are big fans of this program. So I want to make sure I acknowledge them. A lot of them were expecting a big spike when the wake of that debate started to unfold, because the logic was, okay, we don't want to vote for Trump, okay, but now we're not sure we should be voting for Biden. So where is that vote going to go?
Yeah.
So the logic was this would be great for RFK Jr. to catch some of that attention. And one of the things you would think so. I one of the things I talked about in the last program was he hasn't really cultivated a brand either. When here again, it's Coke versus Pepsi. It really is, because you have your core supporters. Okay, here's your core supporters for Coke. Here's your core supporters for Pepsi. They're going to be there. They're not going to change. A lot of times the choice when it comes to an election is made right in line waiting to vote. And you walk in there and you see Coke and you see Pepsi, and how that kind of marketing works. The reason you always see those two brands together in vending machines is because you don't say to yourself, do I need a drink? You say, I like Coke better than Pepsi, and I'm going to get me one.
Yeah.
So what is RFK's brand? What is
Yeah, I think the problem that they have is that they're torn between trying to build a brand and trying to deal with a lot of the organizational issues they have in getting on ballots and trying
Yes,
to be heard, and it's
that's absolutely
draining their creative energy. And instead of being able to put energy behind creating a really awesome campaign, like whether you like it or not, Make America Great Again was a great branding campaign, and it really worked for Trump. And they I think they've just been
Yep.
really drained. Perhaps they should have responded to people who were reaching out to volunteer. But it's a shame. I think part of his problem too, he should have seen a big spike. If humanity was actually paying the kind of attention that they should, in terms of understanding their own power in this process. But so many people have been trained to believe that an independent can't win, that on a subconscious level, they just dismiss the independent candidate. And that's really a shame. And at this point, the Democratic Party, there have to be people in there like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Because he would have been a perfect choice to go up against Trump.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll set the blame for this mostly on the Democrats because they're the ones in power right now. They've caused nothing but problems for him from state to state, RFK Jr., getting on one ballot as opposed to another. Nothing but problems. Okay. The other thing they have done, and Biden is probably center here, is they have denied RFK Jr. Secret Service protection. Now, I know people who are Democrats and people who are going to go, they don't want RFK in there because the claim is that he's going to take more votes away from Biden than he is Trump. So they don't want him in there. And they're going to say, well, he hasn't qualified for this. He hasn't qualified. He's up around 15%. He's on the ballot in most of the states now. We're getting close enough to the election. He theoretically could, get enough delegates and all this other kind of stuff. Now, it's not saying that he will, but mathematically, in terms of the opportunities, are there.
Yeah.
So at this point, there really is no reason, if you're Joe Biden, why you shouldn't give RFK Jr. Secret Service protection. I mean, this is a guy whose his family name is almost synonymous with assassination, with tragedy. He had a very credible threat a little while ago on the anniversary of his father's death. Somebody was going to say that they were going to, take him out during that anniversary. And credible threat or not, the Biden administration did nothing. Now, this is where I'm going to come back to. We love Joe Biden. Okay, this guy, when he was young, he was a goof. He's a goof now. And, the fact that he won't give somebody whose name is synonymous with assassination Secret Service protection at this point, he's an SOB.
I have
He's
to
an
tell you,
old SOB. He's not this lovable
yeah.
grandpa. He's an
he
SOB.
never was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just the family dynamics speak to there being a lot more going on there than what meets the eye. He keeps getting put in people's faces like some kind of sweet old grandfather, but nothing about his history, nor his energy, nor the way the family dynamics work speaks to that at all. In Kennedy's case, I think it is a testament to there is a cabal of people in the Democratic Party that have been making these really bad decisions, and they have been so desperate to hang on to the power position, they have repeatedly ignored some very obvious major issues that they had. And I think that I wonder if the rest of the Kennedy family has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Because they came out, all of them, against and did that video really trashing him. I mean, basically, when your whole family does a video, I think that may have something to do with it, because, as you know, they're a huge part of the Democratic Party.
Absolutely.
And for whatever reason, they all decided to go against him. It's a shame.
Yeah, the family turning against him is really sad. But you got to keep in mind, like you said, their connection with the Democratic Party, their connection with Joe Biden, that lovable oaf of a guy.
Curmudgeon.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to ask you about something. We're going to shift away from politics here just a little bit. If you're new to the program, we don't always stay on politics, but this is something that I really wanted to ask you, because this is going to get into marketing. This is going to get into branding. This is going to get into what catches fire on social media, which to me is fascinating. There's this guy by the name of Wade Wilson. Do you know who he is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have to be deceased yourself not to know who he is.
Let me tell the audience, for those who may not know, just give you a brief synopsis. Wade Wilson, 30, was found guilty in June of killing Christine Melton, who was 35, and Diane Ruiz, who was 43, in the fall of 2019. Wilson strangled Milton to death as she slept in her bed and then stole her car. A short time later, Wilson saw 43-year-old Diane Ruiz walking along and asked her directions to a nearby school and lured her into the car. When Ruiz tried to exit the car, Wilson attacked her, beating and strangling her. Before pushing her out of the car, he realized she wasn't completely dead. So he ran over her 10 to 20 times. And apparently, according to testimony, he was excited about this because he tried to make Ruiz look like spaghetti. Now, the reason I am talking about this guy is because this guy has a very dynamic look. And I'm going to put him on the screen here. I'm going to describe him to the audio audience. Here he is, real lovable guy. He's got the tattoos all over his face, and he's got the mean look and the fancy shirt and tie. And the reason that I'm talking to Shaman about this, where I'm going with this, is the female following that this guy has is enormous. And this isn't exactly new. The Night Stalker, all those people had fans. But now with social media, there's these women online talking about how fine he is. Tell me, what is it? You're a woman. You're a marketing person. You tell me.
Yeah.
And we were talking about George Clooney. I'll give George Clooney this. He's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Okay. He's an idiot, in my opinion. But he's a good-looking guy. You can't take that away from him. The gene pool was very gracious to him. This guy
there's
here,
there's a lot of, well, not only do we have a mental health crisis going on, it's a global mental health crisis. I think it's like 3 of every 10 people are dealing with mental health issues. And when you've got people dealing with depression and anxiety and loneliness and things like that, and when you see a massive increase of that, you're going to see an increase in behaviors that are antisocial, if you will. And so you've got there's a segment of the female population that loves a bad boy, and they love a bad boy that they think wouldn't treat them the same way, or they like the fact that they feel the danger of being entangled with him. And I think there's nothing more appealing than a man who can't go anywhere, that you don't actually have to physically touch, that a lot of really lonely people find appealing. It's like having a boyfriend by letter and email. And I granted there are some inmates that you can have physical relationships with. I'm pretty sure death row inmates aren't one of them. And our desperate our culture of desperately wanting to be known, because we live in the attention economy. We have younger generations that are obsessed with the idea of being famous on some level. Also appeals because by connection, you can now utilize his fame for your own fame. And so there's a lot of little reasons there. I could keep going on. He has a handsomeness to his features, like it's symmetry. It's that beauty is about symmetry.
Sure.
The tattoos would have sent me racing for the hill, not to mention his disgusting energy. But he's dressed in a suit and he's on trial and getting lots of attention. And people are lonely apparently, and I just
Yeah.
find it really tragic and sad. I don't think it's nearly as many of the population. I've heard some men doing videos talking about women and how women could. It's like it's not women; it's a handful of women who were already goo-gooing over men who are trapped in circumstances where they can pretend like they actually have a relationship with them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
A lot of women that I've noticed, particularly on TikTok, are really disgusted by this.
Oh yeah.
And they don't understand. I mean, we can say it's a fringe group of women, certainly
Yeah.
in the context of the population, but these videos are very prevalent. I mean, this guy walking in slow motion in his suit and jacket and all this hip hop music, like he's some kind of good looking gangster, and he's just
Well, the thing
wow.
I caution I teach at one of the colleges, and I caution the students of mine to be very careful about believing what you're seeing on social media, because I've noticed this real increase in uptick in, first it was about money and bathing suits and being a player with a big roll of dough and being, hey, look at me, and that was kind of like the first 10 years of social media. And now, because the competition's increased dramatically, you have people who I know, like I see people stitching these videos of people saying things, and I'm like, everyone's like, how could they say that? That's a horrible thing to say. And I'm like, how many times am I going to have this conversation with people? A huge majority of people who do content that is polarizing are purposely doing it to get attention and to get their videos shared and stitched. They are literally using someone else's, disgusting behavior or their own perception of that person or behavior to get attention. And we see this with celebrities all the time. Like when I hear of a celebrity being arrested for something, if they're not going to prison for a really long time, I highly suspect, my first question is, do they have a concert coming up? Do they have a book coming out, an album coming out? Because
Yeah.
that is how desperate so many celebrities have come to get attention, because they're now competing with everybody who's got a social media account. So it's interesting times we live in.
Yeah, very, very true. We'll wrap up with the Melania Trump comment. Why don't you go ahead and explain that and what your reaction is?
Oh, I loved this. Can I tell you? I have to confess that I got the chance to meet Melania and Trump years ago when they were first dating, and I got to see their energy up close, and I could tell that she was going to be, a force to be reckoned with. She was not. She was, just an interesting woman, very pretty, very elegant, and I liked her, and I've continued to like her because she stays out of politics as much as she can. She dresses amazingly. A lot of women have a lot of money, but they don't know what to do with it. And
Yeah.
she uses those tailors like, there's no tomorrow. And I have mad respect for not only the style that she has, but it's the style in which she approaches her role in politics, which is, I'm not here to babysit. And so she came out with this comment, which was just, I mean, I know she's got to be sitting in her office somewhere going, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
But she basically said that Donald doesn't need her to babysit him, and that she's got a child at home that she needs to be with, and he can handle himself. And it was such a brilliant comment, because she's not saying anything about Joe Biden, but
Yeah.
it speaks profoundly to how involved Joe Biden is in Biden's campaign.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a brilliant comment.
There's a lot of dynamics to this. There's the one dynamic where you could make the argument that she gets that criticism because she's not the little woman that's following him around. And that comment is wonderful. And Barron Trump, speaking about attention, I've noticed Barron Trump now, a lot of young women are paying attention to him.
Yeah,
He's
tall and
maturing very
handsome.
well.
Yeah,
He's
and
maturing very
he's
well.
got an elegant demeanor, which I'm sure he got from his mother.
Yeah, and he's what, 6'7" or something?
6'7", 6'9", something like
Wow,
that.
yeah. So yeah, he's a young man. He's maturing. He's obviously entering the prime of his life. He's starting college, and I have always gotten the impression that just like Jackie O with her children, the chaos that was around JFK, she always made those children a priority. And you could say the same thing about Princess Diana. And I get that from Melania, too. She's not going to let all the chaos and all the bullshit around Donald Trump affect her upbringing of this young man. And I think you have to respect that. I think you have to respect that.
And it looks, when you see Joe Biden's Vogue cover, which, is okay I get it. She's the president's wife, but then you see her sitting in the president's chair. I just don't see Melania doing that.
Yeah. getting back to the dynamics of this, there's those who say that she's not out supporting him because of some of the antics that he has
He
done.
doesn't care. Come on.
I don't.
She's not an idiot. She's not
I
an
think
idiot. She chooses her battles wisely, and that's not one that she gives a crap about. That's old news.
yeah, she's very focused on that young man,
Mhm.
and I give her a lot of credit for that. Okay,
And the way she's handled
yeah.
Trump, because he's like having a big kid and another big kid, and she handles him really, really well.
Yes, yes. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Over the next few days, I'm going to kind of gauge the response to this press conference. I have a feeling it's not going to move the needle that much one way or the other.
No, people are going to be like, "Oh, they
Um,
got the dosage right."
yeah, I don't think it's going to be
I'm
particularly
sorry.
bad. I don't think it's going to be particularly good. If I was a Democrat, I would not fall into the trap of we got to make a change or we're going to lose the election because there's no guarantee you're going to win anyway.
Yeah.
The decision has to be, is this the best person? Is this the best person physically and mentally to carry us to 2029? And that is a long time for somebody who's in their early to mid 80s and already experiencing difficulty. This is not running the local pizza shop. This isn't Joe Biden's pizzeria. Okay. This is somebody who's running the most powerful country in the world and it has a lot of problems. Things are happening 24/7. Is this the best person that should be sitting in that chair?
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think we have a reckoning. Either one of these guys, are they the best person to be sitting in this chair? Even RFK, and we kind of got off the track with his brand, and maybe we'll touch on this again later. Um, his brand has suffered a little bit because he's gotten mired down in some comments too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that haven't helped him either.
But he's
So
also getting it from both sides, which I don't think a lot
yeah,
of people really
absolutely.
appreciate, that he's not just dealing with like the blue versus red. It's like the purples come after him.
Yeah, he's getting arrows from both sides.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna have to wait and see. If you're here again, I can tell by the totals here, a lot of new viewers tonight. So just to let you know, Shaman and I do this program um, once a week, Thursday Night Live. She and I come in here and we talk about a whole things revolving obviously around the election, about media, marketing. Those are all in our wheelhouse. Shaman, why don't you tell people where they can find you elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn about my books and my upcoming book, A New American Dream, which talks about the collapse of the American dream and what we can do about it, you can visit me at shamanisis.com. There's links there to all my social media. I'm very active on X and LinkedIn, as well as TikTok. And of course, you can learn about the Soltech Foundation at soltechfoundation.org.
Billy Dees right here. You can check me out on, well, it used to be called Twitter. Now it's called X, and at Billy Dees there. The podcast covers a lot of territory. Got some interesting interviews coming up, and I don't want to tip my hat too much. Next Thursday, we have a scheduled guest to come on with us, Shaman. So we're going to have an additional person from the Live on X universe. And yes, you're probably watching us on X, but we're on a lot of other platforms. And this is on Facebook Live and some other places. And the only reason I mentioned Live on X is that's where the majority of our listens come from. We do send the signal out to YouTube only because I don't get a lot of views there, but there are people who like to watch the podcast on their TV, on their smart TV. And it seems like YouTube is probably the easiest way to facilitate that. So there's a lot of ways to check in out the Billy Dees podcast. You can find the Billy Dees podcast on all the major platforms. We have a 10-year history on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, all the big feeds were there. And as a matter of fact, if you go to Good Pods and you look up the Billy Dees podcast on Good Pods and you do it on desktop, if you go to the right of the screen, my leaderboard is there with all my current stats. So you can check those
Billy's
out.
number one.
A lot of times, sometimes I fall.
I know, but Billy, let me say that again in case you didn't hear it. Billy's number one. He doesn't talk about it, but I will.
Oh, well, that's very, very nice of you. So a lot happening. Be sure to follow us on X at Billy Dees, at Shamanisis. I know your author name you're using Cynthia. Is that correct?
Yeah, for this next book, Shamanisis is a pen name, but for the next book, I am using my given name, which is Cynthia L. Elliott. So don't be surprised if you see that on the book, A New American Dream.
Awesome. Can't wait for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a fun ride. And tell you what, Republican convention next week.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
be talking about that with our guest, I'm sure. For all of you, thank you very much for listening to the Billy Dees podcast, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X at Billy Dees for updates about the program.